Have you ever noticed how the very word dieting makes people wince? As if it were a sentence rather than a choice. We hear it and think of hunger, of giving up, of endless struggle. But what if everything we believed about dieting was incomplete? What if dieting wasn't about restriction at all, but about learning the language of your own body? Dieting is one of those words that triggers instant reaction. A tightening in the chest, a grimace, a quiet sigh. People hear the word and imagine restriction, hunger, denial. They imagine a war waged against their own appetites, a forced march toward a smaller number on a scale. This is what most people think dieting is, and because of that, they approach it with dread, with resentment, and with a faint expectation of failure. But what if we turned this notion on its head? What if dieting was not a punishment, but a process of discovery? What if, instead of taking things away, we learned to add the right ones? Knowledge, awareness, precision, patience. The truth is that dieting, when done with understanding, can become a tool for transformation far deeper than appearance. It can reprogram not only the body's chemistry, but the mind's relationship with food, with health, and with self-control. Our bodies are intricate systems. Every signal we send, every bite, every thought, every hour of rest is translated into chemical messages that shape who we are becoming. When you starve your body, it learns fear. It begins to store, to conserve, to slow. But when you nourish it wisely, with rhythm and reason, it learns trust. It becomes efficient, balanced, and resilient. Most diets fail because they begin from a place of hostility, a battle between desire and discipline. Real dieting, the kind that sustains, begins with cooperation. It begins when you stop trying to overpower biology and start learning from it. Think for a moment about what true change demands. When we sought to create a vaccine, we did not fight nature. We understood it. We worked with it, decoded its patterns, and then used that knowledge to build immunity. Dieting, in a sense, follows the same path. It is not about suppression. It is about design. You study your habits, your cravings, your triggers. You watch how your body responds to certain rhythms. You make small, informed adjustments. Over time, these adjustments compound, and the system, your system, begins to shift in the direction of health. This is not willpower. This is partnership. And what a powerful partnership it can be. Imagine treating your diet as a lifelong dialogue between you and your body, not a monologue of punishment. You begin to see food not as an enemy, but as information. Each choice you make is a signal, a vote for clarity, or a vote for confusion. The difference between what dieting is and what it can be is simply this: awareness. When you become aware of what your body needs, of what it resists, of how it speaks back to you, you stop dieting and start evolving. The promise of dieting is not weight loss. It is self-mastery. It is the realization that your biology is not your jailer, but your collaborator. Dieting, in its truest sense, is not about changing what you eat. It is about changing what you believe. And once that belief shifts, everything else follows. When people speak of dieting, they often do so with a tone of resignation, as though it were a necessary misery, a ritual of denial. They think dieting means restriction, less pleasure, less comfort, less life. They equate it with hunger and willpower, as if health were achieved through endurance alone. But this idea is mistaken. Dieting is not about subtraction. It is about design. It is the art of aligning one's choices with one's biology, of learning how to nourish rather than merely feed. The tragedy is that many approach dieting as a battle when, in truth, it could be a dialogue, a quiet, intelligent conversation with the body that sustains us. We must remember that the body is not an enemy to be conquered. It is an organism of astonishing intelligence, shaped by millions of years of adaptation. It listens to every signal we send. When we eat in fear, it tightens. When we starve it, it clings. When we nourish it with balance, it responds with vitality. Dieting, at its best, is not an act of deprivation, but of communication. It is the process of saying to the body, I understand you. I will give you what you need when you need it. And in return, the body begins to cooperate, to regulate, to heal. The problem lies not in our lack of knowledge, but in our impatience. We live in a world that celebrates immediacy, quick fixes, instant results. But nature does not hurry. True change, lasting change, happens with patience and consistency. Dieting, therefore, should not be seen as a sprint, but as a slow, deliberate reprogramming of habits. The body must be taught gently and persistently that it can trust us again. We will not starve it one day and overfeed it the next. Every meal, every choice, is a message of stability or chaos. The outcome depends on which one we choose to repeat. Consider the science behind adaptation. When we introduce stress to a system in measured doses, it grows stronger. The same principle applies to diet. Occasional discipline builds resilience, not rebellion. The key is balance, a rhythm that allows recovery and renewal. What people call dieting is often just a phase of punishment. But what dieting can become is a lifelong experiment in equilibrium. The more you observe your body, the more you listen to it, the more precise your actions become. This is not mere self-control, it is self-understanding. In the end, dieting is not about controlling the body, it is about cooperating with it. It is a declaration that health is not found in suffering, but in awareness. Those who diet merely to lose weight will lose more than they gain. But those who diet to learn, to listen, to evolve, to refine, will find something greater. They will find mastery, and in that mastery, they will rediscover the simple truth that our greatest strength lies not in resisting nature, but in working with it, faithfully, intelligently, and with respect. Most people think of dieting as a season of suffering, a temporary phase of control, followed by an inevitable return to old habits. They imagine a narrow path of restraint, where pleasure is forbidden and endurance is glorified. But this is a misunderstanding of both nature and human potential. Dieting, in its truest form, is not about self-denial. It is about self-direction. It is not a punishment for past choices, but an investment in future vitality. We diminish its purpose when we reduce it to numbers on a scale or to the fleeting satisfaction of discipline. Dieting, when understood correctly, is the process of restoring harmony between what the body requires and what the mind commands. Our culture has made dieting a spectacle of extremes. Fasts that starve, regimens that promise miracles, and philosophies that divide food into good and evil. But nature does not work in absolutes. It works in balance, in rhythm, in the measured exchange between energy and rest, nourishment and renewal. When we impose violence on that balance, when we treat our bodies as machines to be forced rather than organisms to be guided, we lose the very harmony that health depends upon. Dieting, therefore, is not the act of restriction, but the art of rhythm. It is the awareness that the human body flourishes not under extremes, but under consistency. When I look at how most people approach dieting, I see the same error that scientists once made before they learned to work with nature instead of against it. We used to fight disease by attacking, by suppressing, by destroying. It was only when we began to understand the delicate intelligence of biology that true healing became possible. The same lesson applies here. You cannot bully your body into health. You must persuade it with reason and repetition. You must learn to speak its language, the language of hormones, signals, and adaptation. Dieting is the practice of fluency in that language. There is dignity in structure. There is freedom in discipline. True dieting is not a prison, but a pattern, one that teaches us to live with greater intention. When you eat consciously, you are not depriving yourself. You are defining yourself. You are telling your body, this is the direction I choose. Each decision becomes a step toward alignment, not away from joy. Over time, those choices form a rhythm that sustains you, a rhythm that feels less like dieting and more like living deliberately. So let us move beyond the narrow definition of dieting as temporary control. Let it instead become a way of seeing, a science of self-care, a study of response and adaptation. The goal is not to be lighter, but to be clearer, to cultivate a relationship with your body grounded in respect, awareness, and purpose. For in that understanding lies the true power of dieting, not the reduction of the body, but the elevation of the self. So the next time you think about dieting, don't ask, what must I give up? Ask instead, what am I willing to understand? Because the moment you stop fighting your body and start listening to it, dieting stops being a punishment and becomes a partnership. And that partnership, once formed, can transform not only your body, but your entire way of living.